All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be breaking down the Week 4 first look build here for you guys. Let's go ahead and get into it. But first, I do want to do a quick recap of last week. Last week continued another awesome week. Preseason, good stuff. Week 1, week 2, good stuff. Week 3 continued as well. Our quarterback, Kirk Cousins, went off, and really all the quarterbacks that we were on went off for you guys. So hopefully you took advantage of that, whether it was Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, Deshaun Watson, or even Stroud. Really the biggest flaw on the whole slate was the Joshua Kelly call. Watching it back, I don't want to say it was the wrong call, because given the defense, I would say it's correct. But man, the Chargers really just decided their run game was going to be RPOs, and they're going to be short yardage plays. A lot of slants, a lot of bubbles, a lot of burn routes, a lot of, just receiver screens. That was kind of their run plays on first down. Then Mostert, kind of carried. But Michael Pittman was a really good play. And actually, in my final build, I mentioned I was between these four receivers: Michael Pittman, Nico Collins, Amari Cooper, or Mike Williams. Mike Williams. Those were like the four obvious plays at receiver that, were just too cheap not to play. And I kind of got lucky there. Now, I don't think this was a mistake. Tank Dell was my favorite value play once again. And guys, I mentioned last week where like the edge that we gained by being sharper than everyone at the start of the season gets reduced kind of each week up until really probably after this week. And then it's kind of, we got to do more game theory stuff. That Tank Dell is a perfect example of that. Last week he was minimum price. I was telling you guys he's going to be the best value on the board. Last week I said the same thing. I'm like, all right, Tank Dell, a little bit higher price, but he's the clear value play, and he was pretty chalked. Hopefully you guys were able to take advantage of that 2 straight weeks. It was more Nico Collins was not wide open like Tank Dell in a few plays, and they were just blown coverages. I think we can go back to the well with really both of them this week. Justin Jefferson, obviously easy play. I was really shocked at Amari Cooper. I felt like that was the easiest play on the whole slate, just given his price point, given how good Deshaun Watson, and I say good, Deshaun Watson did look good last week, and he looked good again 2 weeks ago, and he looked good again last week. And then Smythe, whatever. We're always punting at tight end for the most part, unless there's a clear-cut value. Defensively, I did end up going up from this as well. I'm just always going to put like the minimum price defense in there for the most part. And then obviously, as the week progresses, if you guys have salary left over, you can bump it up. I had $100 left over in this build directly, so you guys could have just went with, I believe it was Cardinals defense, and they scored 5 points. Or in the build I did, where I went Mike Williams, had a little bit more left over. I was able to get to Cardinals defense, 9 more points, but really good season average thus far. So hopefully that continues this week. All right, so now we go ahead and look at this week, and I'm going to continue to say this as the weeks progress. Yes, we are kind of losing the edge that we had just by paying attention during the preseason and just not having these weird preconceived thoughts, but I will still say like this is a pretty appealing slate, I would say, especially at the quarterback position. Obviously, I'll be breaking that down. Running back wise does get a little bit more difficult. Receiver wise, I don't want to say simple, because there's a lot of like good solid price plays, but that's not going to be the difficult part. And then tight end wise, I do think there's going to be a good value play. And kind of the nice part about this week as well is that we are going to get a lot of interesting games, I will say, on the main slate, where we also had the London game. That's fun. But on the main slate, where all these games are pretty much going to be close. Last week, we had a lot of kind of ugly games on paper. And when I was watching film, it was pretty ugly, a lot of the games there as well. It's a tough watch this week. Really, the only game that's supposed to be a blowout is going to be Cardinals versus the Niners. And we saw that the Cardinals really aren't a cakewalk in some occasions, but all the games are pretty much going to be about the same scoring, except for the Fins versus the Bills. Although, the Bills defense looked really good last week, and obviously the Denver defense is going to be one that we're going to be targeting this whole season. Let's go ahead and get into the quarterback. So guys, this week, quarterback wise, I'm not sure if we actually have to be paying up for the studs on this slate. Josh Allen going to be in a good spot going against Miami. Russell Wilson was able to put up some production against that defense as well, even a blowout. Sure, can he get there? Yes, but do we need to force it? I don't think so. Like Jalen Hurts, I think he's in a fine spot against Washington. Josh Allen literally just went off against them as well. That was a little bit due to Sam Howell having a bad game and just some costly turnovers that really just led to some easy scoring opportunities for the Bills. But yeah, you could pay up for those guys. They're probably going to get you 20 points. I would say if we're paying up for a quarterback, we're going to be paying up for Justin Herbert. The Las Vegas Raiders defense hasn't really looked all that good, and the Chargers defense hasn't really looked all that good. This game, I'm a little bit surprised at the over and under. I thought that this would be the highest scoring game on the slate. It's not, as it sits right now. maybe that gets adjusted. Maybe that's a good opportunity for you guys to maybe make a bet there. But he would be a good starting point, I would say. The worry, obviously, Mike Williams is going to be out in that game and maybe gets Austin Eckler back, which might lead to a little bit less passing attempts. Then from there, I think a lot of people are going to be going with Joe Burrow, and I'm not going to say that this is going to be a wrong idea. Joe Burrow does make a lot of sense. Look at the matchup with the Titans. They've given up the third most passing yards to opposing teams. Now, we do see the Seahawks and Chargers are going to be, up there by a decent amount, by 100 yards at least there, and they both given up a lot of passing touchdowns. But yes, the Titans just not good defensively against the pass. We know that. That's a known factor. And so, yes, did Joe Burrow maybe not look as good as you would want? Yeah. Did he still throw the ball 49 times? Yes. Okay, so definitely intriguing at this price tag. It sucks that he didn't get a touchdown. But then again, that was just a weird game. That game was supposed to be like a high-scoring game, and it wasn't. And sometimes that just happens. Gets another week to rest up and be healthy. We'll see. Once again, I feel like we can just continue to try to pay down. So to me, this is where it starts to get interesting. Like Russell Wilson is going to be in a really ideal spot going against the Chicago Bears. Now, the issue with the Chicago Bears is that you can beat them really any which way, whether that be, on the ground or through the air. I do think that this passing game is going to continue to get better as the season progresses, as Jerry Jeudy gets a little bit more healthy, as maybe Marvin Mims carves out a little bit of a bigger role, and really as Javonte Williams gets more healthy as well. The biggest concern with Russell Wilson as a play is the fact that he didn't get a rushing attempt last week. Now, you could say that game got out of hand fast, and why even risk getting him some design rushing attempts? And that could very well be it. The appeal with Russell Wilson is the rushing. We need that more there. That was expected to be there a little bit more this season, and last week it wasn't. Still 38 times, had a touchdown. 300 passing yards in that game as well. Gets another good matchup going against the Chicago Bears, which are a bottom 10 pass defense. Now, Matthew Stafford was definitely disappointing. 6 sacks, I believe he ended up having in that game. Only threw the ball 33 times as well, but did get sacked 6 times. So it's tough to say that's going to exactly be alleviated against the Colts. But at the same time, you do expect it to be a little bit easier for Matthew Stafford. He was just off on a few plays as well. Like, he probably could have had Kyren Williams, the running back, on a touchdown. Tutu Atwell nearly had a touchdown as well, and he didn't end up scoring a touchdown on that play. Like, he easily could have had 3 touchdowns. It was just tiny things, just off enough, and he kind of went back to his typical Detroit Lions bad game. I expect him to bounce back here against the Colts. The Colts are a team that are giving up the second most points to opposing quarterbacks as well. A lot of that's due to rushing, though, so I want to call that out. Will that happen again? Not really. Matthew Stafford's not going to rush the football, but they have given up a decent amount of passing yards as well. It's not like they're not getting beat up via the pass. Guys, unfortunately for us on this slate, we don't get the free Jordan Love play at, extreme low ownership for whatever reason. It's mind-numbing. I don't really get what's going on there. We saw a lot of people jump on Tank Dell last week after I called him out as the best value play the previous week. I was thinking, all right, Jordan Love eventually going to start to get more love from people, regardless of kind of who's active for him. And no, still like 1% owned. I loved it. That was great. This week, I'm very curious as to what Jimmy G's ownership is going to be, because he was kind of getting dogged a little bit during the coverage, and he did take kind of a big hit, and now he's in concussion protocol. That is interesting. I did not see that. That is interesting because he did finish the game. Now, I will say if he plays, it's going to be difficult not to like him. The Chargers defense is pretty poor, and like I said, I thought that this game would be higher scoring, and I'm guessing this is the reason why Jimmy G sits. That's a little bit of a downgrade at the quarterback position. Let's assume he plays, though. This is a good matchup. You got Jacoby Myers there. You got Davante Adams there in the best matchup on the slate. He should be able to take advantage of it. He should be able to give us at least 16 points. I think he'll be a good candidate to get us at least 3x in this. All right, so I'm going to go Jimmy G at the quarterback position for now. I don't like that he's injured, because that could really change the first look build. Guys, make sure to be tuning in throughout the week. I'm going to be covering the main slate in depth throughout the week, as well as all the other slates as well. For now, I'll be playing him. But I will say, this is the first time this season where it feels a little bit too risky. And you guys are going to say, well, you've been on Jordan Love. What do you mean? I don't know. Like, something just seems off with the Raiders, right? It seems like Davante Adams wants to be traded. Josh Jacobs doesn't have it all there. It's just a little bit off. They didn't go for the touchdown when they should have at the end of the game. So I don't get warm and fuzzies about that play, although I do think it's the correct decision considering the price and considering the matchup. Let's go ahead and move on into the running back spot. I will say Christian McCaffrey, it almost feels like a lock and load at this point, regardless of the price tag. Now, it's funny because week 1, we were getting so much easy value and so much top pricing that we can make any build we want work. We have to work for a little bit more. We might have to jump down from Christian McCaffrey as the build process goes on, but for now, let's just go ahead and plug and play him. We saw a lot of the Dallas Cowboys really be efficient runners against them. I don't think that is going to be a hindrance against CMC's production. And I should mention, like, we saw Elijah Mitchell get a lot more work, but as he should have in that game, like, this is honestly probably still too much work for CMC. I was expecting like basically 18 opportunities for him per game. But if this continues, we'll definitely take it, right? And what should be a positive game script for him as well. Maybe Debo's a little bit banged up as well. Maybe that, and obviously Ayuk's a little bit banged up. Maybe that just brings a little bit more receiving work to CMC's way. Then from there, Austin Eckler, I think he's going to sit out this week, guys, because he has the bye week next week. That's been my expectation since he's really been on that injury report. I actually was forced to trade him away in one of my leagues because of that. We'll see, but I do expect him to sit. Yeah, Tony Pollard going against New England. I don't know if I want to touch this. Last week the Patriots were in an easy matchup against the Jets. They were able to shut down Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook. It's a different beast here going against the Dallas Cowboys, but I don't know if we need to be targeting Tony Pollard necessarily. It is a soft price tag for a guy that's going to get 20 opportunities, but once again, I don't know if we need to exactly go out of our way to do that. Josh Jacobs going to get a lot of work as well. We know that he's going to get 20 opportunities. Gets a good matchup there going against the LA Chargers. Alexander Madison had his best game against them last week. And like, sure, on paper, it might not be the best matchup because a lot of teams have actually been kind of poor to running backs this season, especially in the passing game. But I do expect Josh Jacobs to probably have his best game of the season. I thought that kind of last week as well, which kind of happened. I know, like, score-wise it didn't, but he easily could have had a touchdown in that game. And it's kind of concerning against... Oh, he did have his best game of the year last week, but not by much. It's kind of concerning against Denver that he wasn't able to do more. And that's kind of what I mean about the Raiders. It just seems a little bit off. Like, these two matchups were pretty easy in retrospect now, and they weren't exactly able to take advantage of it on the ground. So do we exactly want to go out of our way to target Josh Jacobs? And this one, probably not. Derrick Henry, he's getting his touches, but he's getting outstamped by Tajay Spears. I'm not sure I exactly want to touch that. James Cook is going to find himself in a good matchup. He's been productive. I will say a lot of his production came in garbage time last week. I don't know if I really want to touch that. Kyren Williams and Zach Moss are extremely interesting plays, though, at the running back spot this week. Kyren Williams played basically every single snap without Cam Akers there. Like, if you consider week 1, and then week 2, and then last week. Now, this Colts team been a little bit more impressive than people thought. But Kyren Williams, like, if we look at all the RB stats, he's like the leader in a lot of them. Targets, snaps. Maybe he needs to get a little bit more work on the ground, honestly. But the targets are there. He had a bad drop. He's had 2 bad drops now, but he easily could have had a touchdown. And then, heck, there was a play in which his face mask got grabbed. And if that doesn't occur, Stafford hopefully hits him for a touchdown as well on that same drive. We had that one play where Stafford's knees going to the ground, ends up being down. That's like a 30-yard play for Kyren Williams. Like, the plays were there. Thankfully, I shouldn't say thankfully, he didn't go off his Monday night game. His price point probably went to change too much. I don't know if people are exactly going to be jumping on this, though. But, like, this is what I mean. When we look at, like, the RB stats, he is the one, like, leading the charge. Now, the production could be a little bit higher on the ground game, but targets-wise, up there. Could be up there a little bit more for receptions, but the yards are there as well. It has a touchdown. So I just feel like this is the correct play as it sits right now. The only slight concern is that the Colts are kind of a middle of the road matchup, at least for opposing running backs. But I don't feel like this is a stay away. Like, they've been poor against quarterbacks and whatnot as well. I like the playing time. I like that he's going to give us 15 opportunities. I like the fact that even though he did make a drop and kind of wasn't as sharp in pass blocking as you would like, we didn't see any of Ronnie Rivers, who is Kyren Williams 2.0. And then obviously we also get Christian McCaffrey in there as well. I will say, though, we have some other intriguing plays here, and that's where it's going to make it difficult. Zach Moss in that same exact matchup is appealing to me. He had this game went to OT, but he had 33 opportunities in that game. Now, he only played in 75% of the snaps because he left the game twice. Then we saw Trey Sermon kind of be poor. He's going to play basically 100% of the snap when he's in. The matchup with the Rams is not one we're fearing. And really, if we're just going to get a guy that's getting that much work, it's intriguing. Now, I do worry because, like, I don't know, he hasn't looked bad, but when you see the stats like this, you would think he's like lighting it up and looking good. He's kind of giving us like I don't want to say like Leonard Fournette or, LeGarrette Blount type of workload, because he's not that type of runner, but it's kind of feels that way where it's like, these are ugly plays, but it's working out. Let's continue to roll with it. That's like, he like his freaking wheelwright thought they scored a touchdown on him. Like, this was just a bad defended play. Like, Moss didn't do anything special, but he scored a touchdown. Like, the pricing's still cheap for a guy that's getting that much work, 20 opportunities at least, playing that many snaps. It does feel like a good decision. And this is where maybe we could talk ourselves into not playing CMC because we have some pretty appealing running back plays in Kyren Williams and Zach Moss. Now, that being said, we still have James Conner there, who's still getting a lot of work, still very impressive, gets a better matchup this week than he had last week. You get Alexander Mattison, who really did look much, much improved last week against the Chargers, who are a team that you want to attack via the run game. And he looked good doing it. You know, we see Tampa Bay and Philly, they're probably just really good rush defenses, and I'm not too worried about Cam Akers there. I still think Ty Chandler is going to be the RB2 in that offense. Now, maybe Cam Akers gives a little bit different of a look than Ty Chandler as the RB2, and maybe that's the biggest difference. But I think Alexander Madison's going to be the running back number 1 in this offense. He's going to play about 70% of the snaps, and if he's getting this workload in a game that's going to be appealing to me, let's attack Alexander Madison then. And then, guys, I'll just warn you against Devon Achane. Don't go for it if Ahmed is back. We know it's kind of fluky. It really doesn't matter who's playing running back for the Dolphins. They're all going to look impressive as they have thus far this season, as we saw in the preseason as well. Whether it's Chris Brooks, like, it doesn't matter. They all have been impressive. Not sure if Wilson is active. Maybe you want to look at, we get Swift at such a great price tag. Swift really looked awesome last week again. Washington looked really pitiful on defense. But once again, I think a lot of that was just due to Sam Howell setting them up for problems. Now, that could easily occur again, and this is going to be a very soft price tag for Swift as well. I would say Madison, Connor, Kyren, Zach Moss, those are all safer plays, but obviously Swift makes for a good GPP play. We got Javonte Williams in a great matchup going against the Chicago Bears. It is so easy to run against the Chicago Bears. The issue is we don't know how much work Javonte Williams is going to get. He's been impressive, I would say. I keep saying it. He's been a surprise. Cheap price tag for him. And I want to call this out as well. We are getting Jerome Ford at such a cheap price tag. And I will say the playing time was kind of a head scratcher, only playing 55% of the snaps. Like, Strong got some work, which was also a little bit shocking. Kareem Hunt played about 20% of the snaps. Also a little bit shocking. I would have thought it'd be more of a 60-40 split between, Ford and then a little bit of Kareem Hunt. Well, a lot of Kareem Hunt and then a little bit of Strong. So I do kind of expect that number to get higher this week. And if that happens, like, we're just going to be looking back at this price tag and being like, wow, why would we not play that? Why would we not play Jerome Ford against Baltimore, who's not a plus matchup, not a negative matchup? And like, if you look at what Jerome Ford did against the Titans, that's probably what you would have, I think he would have had the same game if Nick Chubb was there. That's kind of how he was used in that game. He wasn't really used as the workhorse back, which he could be against Baltimore. So I don't know. This slate is the most difficult at the running back position, and it might just be a situation where we end up going with who's ever the lowest owned amongst the players I've mentioned, because they are all set up in good spots and they're all in cheap price tags. Jaylen Warren going to be an interesting play as well, going against Houston, a team that we know we want to be attacking via the run game. He played more and more snaps, and I expect him to play more and more snaps this week as well. Need to give him a little bit more targets, I would say. Would it be shocking to see him have a massive game against Houston? It would not. Same thing, though, for Najee Harris. Khalil Herbert, for some reason, a little bit cheaper than Johnson. Now, he did have a terrible fumble, but that offense looked terrible as a whole. Not exactly a play you're going out of your way to play, but a GPP play as well. And so kind of already, I'm already talking myself into probably not going with CMC and going a little bit lighter at the RB position and just hoping that CMC doesn't exactly dominate as much as he has been. So Zach Moss, ugly, right? But we're going to go with him. And I actually don't mind Alexander Mattison in the flex spot as well. And I more or less just like that leaves us with a bunch of salary left over, like 5.380 left over. Like, that is a lot of salary left over. So let's go ahead and get into the receivers. I know I spent a lot of time on the running backs, but I felt like it was crucial because a lot of good plays. Like, we can make a lot of stuff work there. At the receiver position, I feel like somewhat simple on the top end, but at the same time, it's not, given the pricing. Like, I don't feel like we need to play Jefferson or Tyreek Hill. Just, they're a little bit too priced up, because we got Diggs there in a good matchup against Miami. That game has a chance to be a shootout. We got Adams, who was just targeted heavily, 20 targets in that game. And like, man, he looks super good doing it, right? I don't really see the Chargers being able to stop him. They weren't able to stop Jordan Addison, who looked good. They weren't able to stop KJ Osborne, and they weren't able to stop Justin Jefferson or TJ Hockenson. They weren't able to stop that Vikings offense. Now, the Vikings offense is good, but I think McDaniels will at least be able to scheme up some plays for Adams in this game. The question is, do we want to go with Adams, or do we want to go with his counterpart, Jakobi Meyers, at a little bit cheaper of a price tag? I'm a little bit sad that it's not the $5K price range. This was very sharp. And once again, this is where the edges that we might have had at the beginning of the season are going to be gone. He's been targeted heavily in 2 games now. I don't expect that to change. Do we trust Davante Adams a little bit more? Yeah. Do I feel like we need to be playing one of these two? Yeah. I am going to take the Jacoby Myers at 5.5 instead of Adams, or we're playing both of them. If we're playing Jimmy G, maybe we're playing both of them. But for now, let's go ahead and put Jacoby Myers in there for the same reasons as to why we like Adams and Jimmy G as a quarterback. But once again, like, you could easily play Adams instead. We get Keenan Allen in that same game. I think this game has a sneaky stacking shootout. Not even sneaky. You probably want to be stacking it though. They're going to be without Mike Williams. And last week we saw a lot of just RPOs. They really used that short, quick game on 1st and 10 as kind of their running game to get it to 2nd and 6, 2nd and 7, 2nd and 5, whatever, 2nd and management. And that's why Keenan was able to end up with 20 targets. I'm very interested to see what they do with Mike Williams out. I kind of expect Palmer to operate in the slot. I don't think Johnson's going to get there, but maybe we see a little bit more Keenan in the slot. Just very interesting to see there. I'm having a tough time getting to Keenan. I love Keenan as a play. He's someone we're definitely looking at in GPPs as well as Adams before like a first look build where we have some softer price plays. I don't know if I can get there. Jamar Chase, certainly another play that we probably want to be looking at, right? Like, he finally had a good game. And it's not like his first 2 games were terrible, but obviously not productive enough. Now he gets a great matchup going against the Tennessee Titans, and let's be honest, we see Jamar Chase after that game at this price tag. It's tough not to like him. Now, would it be shocking to see T. Higgins have a good game and at his price tag? Is he someone we could be looking at? Yes. Did he look bad last week? Yeah, that stuff happens. He had an off game. I expect he can bounce back. It's a weird one here. I feel more comfortable paying up for Jamar Chase, but I will say we got CeeDee Lamb and extreme price discount as well compared to like the other studs on the slate. So also someone who could be looking. I am going to go with Jamar Chase for now. I feel like that is the correct decision, but we do have some other really strong receiver plays down here. Like, let's start with Puka Nacua, who, man, I had him at 5.5 receptions for an over and under on Prize Picks and Underdog. No, just on Underdog. They bumped it up, and by game time it was at 6.5 actually. That sucked because we saw that INT that barely got tipped. That would have been an easy reception for him. Still had 7 targets in that game. Still going to be a game against the Colts that you think is going to be an easier game for the quarterback. Matthew Stafford should not be under as much duress, and so that should lead to some simpler receptions. Now, maybe this is more of what we should expect from Puka Nacua, and also at the same time, good on DraftKings for, probably properly pricing Tutu Atwell as well. These 2 guys are still going to get targeted heavily, and they're still going to be involved, and it almost feels like we want to be ending up on one of them in our builds and just hoping we end up on the correct one. Like, it's no shock that Atwell had a good game because he's done that throughout the first few games. That being said, we are still getting like Amari Cooper at really kind of a strange price tag for how productive he should or has been and should have been. And I say that because he had a play where they ruled him out when he wasn't even close to being out. He was like 2 feet inside the sideline, and he might have been able to score a touchdown on that play. So he could have had a much, much bigger night or day. And now, yes, that matchup with Tennessee was great. Matchup with Pittsburgh was great. And this matchup against Cincinnati was one in the rain, and we can't really draw that many conclusions from it. So it is kind of difficult for me not to just plug and play Amari Cooper. And I almost feel like we should be playing Cooper over Jamar Chase considering the price difference, just because I expect him to continue to have a good game. Now you get Courtland Sutton going against that Chicago Bears defense. As expected, he's been the receiver number 1. I was telling you guys, I know it's a little bit due to injury with Jerry Jeudy, but I was telling you guys the whole season or preseason that the difference in ADP and even in week 1, the pricing difference between Sutton and Jerry Jeudy was just strange. It shouldn't have been happening. It was like a 3-round draft difference between the two, and it was just one of the bigger head scratchers, I would say, like one of the easier calls on the season. That has come true thus far, and I think he's going to continue to get targeted heavily. Like, I would say 6 to 7 targets should be the norm for him, and obviously in a great matchup against the Chicago Bears, I expect him to be someone that we are looking at. Should be a safe like 2x option. Does he have a touchdown in him again? Maybe. I don't know. Like, that's fluky, but he is also someone we are certainly looking at. Nico Collins is a play I still like. I mentioned Tank Dell. Tank Dell is going to be at a good price tag as well. I would say Nico Collins still the receiver number 1 in that offense. But I do think it's worth calling out like the snap shares. Tank Dell actually led last week or 2 weeks ago, and now Robert Woods led this week. That just seems a little bit strange to me in terms of offensive snaps, but it was more Tank Dell was wide open the whole game, and maybe that switches this game. Nico Collins I'd prefer over Tank Dell, although they're both probably going to be good plays. We saw Sam Howell try to force the ball to Jahan Dotson on a couple of end zone tries against Buffalo. They were not there. They're bad plays. But now we get some matchup with Philly where Baker Mayfield should have been able to take advantage of that matchup much more than he had been. I'd been saying Baker Mayfield was getting too much hype for how really bad he had looked. And we saw him do what we've seen him do thus far this season, try to force feed Mike Evans. Didn't work because the weakness for the Eagles defense has been, over the middle with slot receivers. Well, you get Jahan Dotson, who's going to be playing a lot, should get more targets than that. And it's pretty clear that Sam Howell likes him. So this is a very great price tag, more of a GPP play though. And then I do think we kind of have to be looking at Adam Thielen a little bit. He mentioned that this game feels like a Super Bowl, which is a funny quote. I don't know if that's a real quote. I'm guessing it is because that does seem like something that Adam Thielen would say. But yeah, it feels like a Super Bowl, which is a funny thing to say for 2-0-3 teams. But obviously he's playing against his former team in the Minnesota Vikings. He's been going off the last 2 games, and the Minnesota defense has looked terrible. I feel like this has like everything written on it that we would want to be looking at, but it also feels entirely like a trap play. And if it does end up being a trap play, we'll end up looking at the price of DJ Chark and be like, how did we not just end up on him? Right? Like, it's just that it seems too obvious there. And then just some other plays I want to call it, like Shaheed got more snaps. Josh Palmer at this price tag with Mike Williams out just feels like a play that we have to make. I do expect him to be operating on slot. Even if he doesn't go off, it feels like it's going to be the correct decision. Johnston is, I feel like they drafted Quintez Johnson because of their injury history at the receiver position. And thankfully they did now because their season isn't over, right? But I still think Palmer is going to be that receiver number 2 there. And if he's operating on the slot, I think a lot of the production that we saw Mike Williams have is going to go to Josh Palmer. And I will say the touchdown that he had was both fluky and not fluky. Justin Herbert missed him badly. He was wide open. The defender had a chance to pick it off, and then it popped up in the air right to Josh Palmer, but he did have the defender beat on that play. So like we are already seeing the difficulty that we are getting on this slate. Like I'll get into tight end in a second. I'm just going to pay down for the lowest price defense for now. But like there is so much salary left over. Like we can make so many builds work. And so we could easily end up on CMC if we choose to do so. We could easily end up on more stud receivers if we choose to do so. But there is like such soft pricing for the receivers and so many like similar plays. It's difficult in that sense. Like, do we need to pay up for Jamar Chase? I don't know. Do we need to just hammer Adam Thielen? Maybe. Honestly, like, what's the chances of Zach Moss, Kyron Williams, and Alexander Madison going off compared to Adam Thielen? Like, probably similar production. You guys are seeing my struggle here. And now just real quickly before I get into the tight end plays, I will say Josh Downs is getting targeted a decent amount, playing a lot as well. Certainly a good value. Ronnie Bell, the Thursday night special for us. If we get news that Debo maybe misses, I don't think he's going to, or like Ayuk misses, then maybe just like a value play you can think about. And maybe they let Johnston just take over as the Mike Williams role. I doubt it. I think they've kind of shown their hand there by giving Josh Palmer the snaps as the receiver number 3. But you never know. So getting into the tight ends, we could easily pay up for a tight end if we want to. Like, it's super easy to fit in TJ Hawkinson into a build. Obviously, Kirk Cousins loves him. And this might be a slate in which I actually end up paying for a tight end just because we do have a lot of really solid pricing. And that's just a big edge that you can gain on the field by going with him. It might be a slate where I actually pay up for defense, which is something I really try not to do. And I'll tell you what, the few times I did it last season, I hated it because it made the rest of my build bad. I'd rather pay up for tight end. And so we could easily just go TJ Hawkinson. We still have a lot of salary left over, but other tight ends that we could roll with. Like by now, you guys know my strategy that I like paying down at the tight end position and defense. Cole Turner could actually be a really good sneaky tight end play, I would say. 2.7, a very cheap price tag for him. He was splitting snaps with John Bates, and Bates didn't look terrible, but Cole Turner did look better. And so if Logan Thomas is still out, I'd love to increase snaps for Cole Turner, and that could be because they're playing from behind. Don't get me wrong, but you kind of expect them to be playing from behind. Again, in this game, he's the better pass-catching tight end, and so he could be a sneaky play at tight end if you guys are just trying to punt there and pay up for the studs. That makes a lot of sense to me as well. And I do want to mention Parham Jr. as well. I ended up splitting snaps with Gerald Everett. Now, Gerald Everett has been getting like a few design plays to him, whereas Parham was pretty lucky to end up with not only 1 but 2 touchdowns. Don't expect much from him, but pretty good matchup. It wouldn't be too shocking to see him have a good game. So guys, before I get into the final kind of first like build part of this, I know it's been a long video. I'm actually very curious as to where you guys would see the pivot in this build. Like, are you trying to pay up at the quarterback, get an upgrade from Jimmy G to, let's say, Russell Wilson, maybe running back wise, and actually maybe we go Madison at one of those running back spots and drop down to Adam Thielen? Do we go stud heavy at the receiver position and then pay down at tight end? Or do we just pay up for a better defense? I'm actually curious about your thoughts before I give you guys my first look build. All right, so here is the official first look build, and I think it's ugly to like choose to go out of your way to pay up for a defense. That's what I chose to do this time. And I more likely than not, I probably won't do it. But I want to show you guys some other simple like adjustments we can make. And I think you guys are actually going to like this second build a little bit more than this first one. And I personally think that this might be the best lineup, honestly. We will see. Obviously, I just feel like the Adam Thielen thing could be a trap game, but at the same time, very well couldn't be. And we probably get three the best plays on the slate into our build. And that's obviously intriguing. I don't think the Cardinals defense is going to go negative. Get a good value tight end play. I like this one a lot. Let's show you guys one more. So here was another slight variation we can run out there. It's just we have so many good receiver plays, and also we have 4 running backs that are basically the same plays at very similar price tag. And then like here's still another very good build we can run out there. Like we're getting 3 running backs that are most likely going to play a majority of their team snaps, and we're getting really cheap high target shares at the receiver position. It's annoying. Maybe this is just like a week 4 thing. Like week 1, week 2, I felt like there's very much clarity at where we want to be going. Even week 3 as well. It's almost like we have too much information to like dial in on a build for you guys. And I apologize for that. For my tracking purposes, I'm going to go with that first build I show you guys. But I want to give you guys all these options. Just there's so many good routes and lineup paths that we can do. That's going to be all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. That does help me out a lot. We've continued to grow. I appreciate that. If you guys want access to any of the 9 to 5 NFL DFS tools, that is available for just $10 a month. Let's have a good week, guys. And as always, let's keep cashing.